Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be answering your questions for Question Time August 2023. So, first off, we have Kelsey with words I can't pronounce asking, what is my favorite food to cook? Well, the easiest answer I tend to reply to people is whatever is on sale. For the most part, I am pretty adept at cooking, so I can make use of virtually any ingredient, so to speak. Like, you can hand me a bunch of stuff, and there's a good chance I can make it turn out pretty tasty. In fact, I actually am meal prepping for several individuals as a way to like give myself a little bit more spending money, more so just so I can buy the food, because I basically buy food, cook for them, keep some of the food myself, it pays for the food, that sort of idea. So I like cooking as a general statement. Sandy the dog asks, how long of a time period should you give a person before deciding to get over that person? They are currently seeing a new person, but not really. It's been about 2 to 3 weeks since them and that person went out on a date. Been asking that person out, but that person just makes excuses. Should you just forget about that person and move on? I would say so. Like, if it sounds like you only just met this individual, you went on maybe a date or two, and then they're kind of like almost essentially like ghosting you. They're at least replying, which is nice, but I feel like you've been making excuses for this prolonged period of time. It's a good sign they're not interested in you, or you're their like second or third backup option, something along those lines, because I believe that if you are interested in something, you will make the time for it. It's pretty rare that someone's going to be so unbelievably busy that they have absolutely no time to spare whatsoever, because I feel like most humans will make time for what is important. So Sandy, I feel like this individual is just kind of dragging you along as a backup option. But again, I could be wrong. TickTock Wanna Pop says, what do you think of the newest remakes of past games? Old games getting remastered with new technology like StarCraft, Advance Wars, Metroid Prime, etc. Well, I think StarCraft 2 did a good job. At least, like, I did play a bit of StarCraft 1 when I was younger. StarCraft 2 is visually spectacular, and I feel like StarCraft 2 was at least kind of still in the era when Blizzard was at least a good company. At this point in time, Blizzard has, like, fallen off a cliff completely. Like, Warcraft 3 Remake was a complete and utter disaster. But at the same time, I feel like it is definitely possible to like revisit older games, but I feel like StarCraft becoming StarCraft 2 was the right direction, not just remaking a game with new visuals. Basically, like StarCraft 2, I feel like kind of updated the game, so to speak. Like it kept like kind of the core concept, so to speak, but expanded more upon it. I think that's a healthier direction than a complete, like, say, reskin attempt like Warcraft 3 did. So I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like making sequels to games can be good if they at least keep that core game mechanics, enhance the visuals, enhance whatever aspects were missing from the previous game. So I feel like if there are, like, say, like popular games that we enjoy and they do remakes like that, I hope to a certain extent it's kind of like a second version, so to speak. Edward Smith Zone says, do you think biting nails is a bad habit? If so, how do you stop biting nails? If you're dating someone who bites their nails, how would that affect the relationship? Well, I think it's a bad habit. Like, it's unsanitary, it doesn't look pleasant, it's just not good for you overall. In terms of, like, breaking the habit, I feel like you have to, like, do things to prevent yourself, like, I don't know, like, maybe wearing mittens or something, so when you try and put your hand in your mouth, it's got, like, fabric so you're not biting. Something along those lines. Maybe, I have no idea, to be honest, like, I've never had that problem, thankfully, nor have I ever dated anyone who's had that problem, but I feel like I'm a reasonably clean individual. Like, if you look around my home, it doesn't look like a single 33-year-old man lives here. It looks pretty and clean, so to speak. So for myself, it would definitely be an issue because I don't like that kind of behavior, unfortunately. Camarex says, what kind of awakenings do you value most on offensive versus utility cards? Well, offensive cards just need to hit hard, and for a period of time that was just having as many 10 combo awakenings as possible, but due to super gravity, levitation is now by far the best awakening you can have. No other awakening adds more damage compared to levitation in super gravity, so that is kind of the biggest thing. Of course, there are definitely cards like, say, like C-Tona who just like slap on tons of 10 combos and tons of double TPAs, so obviously, like, that will catapult a monster's damage output, but they definitely need, like, the spicier awakenings, like TPA Plus is quite a significant amount of damage. They do have now 10 combo plus, so that obviously is amazing, 25 times damage from that one awakening. And then for utility stuff, it's really just team HPs. We're kind of in an era where it's like, basically, nothing matters beyond stacking team HP for the most part. Like, all my assists are going to have to bring multiple team HPs, it feels like, which is kind of unfortunate because there are many cool weapon assists out there, I feel, that do interesting stuff, bring quite a nice myriad of awakenings, but they don't have team HP, and therefore they're not going to be that helpful. So it's really just team HPs, one L awakening on something to take the L unlock latent, like 6-slot latent awakening. I feel like those are kind of the main ones at this point in time, really. And Silver Self says, do you ever think that power creep and pad will continue to grow indefinitely? It will continue to grow indefinitely. That's kind of like the definition of power creep. You have to keep making new stuff in order to like kind of keep the game advancing forward. Like they're talking about how they have all these like plus awakenings, like double 10, like 10 combo plus, attribute plus, triple damage cap, etc. And it's just going to keep happening. And Gung Ho has definitely, I feel like, kind of dug themselves into like a little bit of a corner, so to speak, in the sense that they've had to introduce super gravity to compensate for the fact that everything was hitting way too hard at some point in time. So it's just going to keep going forward and forward. I just dislike the fact that everything needs to have many team HP awakenings. It'd be nice to have a bit more diversity when it comes to your weapon assist awakenings, because it definitely does get more insane. But I think the more problematic aspect is the lack of information and the fact that Gung Ho has a tendency to kill off content creators or third-party content because of I don't know what reason. So we have less information to tackle the dungeons, and it never feels good to spend like 20-30 minutes playing something only to get towards the end and realize, oh, I don't have this specific active skill. I just die and lose. It feels bad, I feel, in that sense. For user with letters I can't pronounce, they ask, which collabs from Pad is one of my favorites and least favorites? Well, in terms of like collaborations that I actually know the franchise reasonably well, Star Wars would be the only one that I truly know, I'd say, more than like very superficial levels. Like Hello Kitty, I know Hello Kitty exists. That's kind of all it is for the most part. Whereas Star Wars, like I did watch the movies, and some of them are not so great, but some of them are pretty good. And like they have iconic characters, they have great music. So like Star Wars is definitely the most interesting collab. But then when it comes to like least favorites, it's pretty much just anything I don't have any like knowledge of. But we can make some arguments that like, I don't know, like, I'm not sure, like what are some like truly underwhelming collaborations? I'm just trying to think. Like for the most part, they tend to make collabs pretty strong. Otherwise people won't actually roll them. Thomas Walker says, if I had to choose a universe from one of the movies or books that I've read to transfer myself into, what would it be and why? That's a tough one, because the problem is, Thomas, I tend to read more like sci-fi dystopic novels or fantasy as well, but many of these tend to have like a darker underlayer, so to speak. Like for instance, I'm reading the Dresden Files right now, and it is set in modern-day Chicago, and everything is the same except the world of the supernatural does exist. So if I'm just a regular mortal, I could probably be transported into that world, and as long as I stay away from Harry Dresden, I'll probably be pretty safe. But in terms of like interesting concepts of like books that I've read, I feel like the more futuristic ones would be like a favorable one for myself, simply because I like to believe that there will be like medical technology improvements to help deal with my various health problems. So like anything set more in the far-flung future would be, I guess, kind of an ideal thing. So like you can make arguments that like Hyperion Kanto series, like that's in the far-off future. I'm pretty sure they could cure me in that world because they have so much magical technology, so to speak. So I feel like it's something along those lines for myself personally, just because I could remove the health issues I currently have. And King Patty says they've been watching my uploads since now, and they've never heard myself say once. Great job. Oh, I do appreciate it. I do try to avoid saying or other poor transitional words. What I actually did was I wrote out a bunch of transitional phrases, like such as like thus, hence, therefore, as a result of, with that being said, or even just pausing for dramatic effect is significantly better compared to using poor transitional words. In all honesty, if you speak well, you can take pauses because people are hopefully hanging on your every single word and they're just waiting for the next thing for you to say, but that magic is kind of shattered, so to speak, if you said So it's just a matter of practice, repetition, and again, I just wrote out a bunch of transitional phrases recited them over and over again until I stamped out the bad behavior. And at the same time, another thing that I have noticed is that when you are speaking, most people tend to speak way too fast because they're a little nervous. So when you are speaking, try to intentionally slow down by like say 25%. And if you do record yourself and rewatch it, you may actually find yourself speaking at a much more pleasant rate, so to speak. Obviously, I do speak faster when I am a bit more on the excited side, but I do intentionally try to slow myself down a little bit. Raul Bastidas asks, what is my thoughts on pineapple on pizza? Well, in theory, it makes sense because like when it comes to food, I truly believe in like texture diversity and flavor diversity. Like more dimensions make things interesting. So in theory, when it comes to pineapple on pizza, you've got a primarily savory and salty dish with something sweet to help cut through it. It does make sense. There are many different cultures and cuisines where they do liberally use fruit or even like grilled fruit in conjunction with various things. So I think it does make sense. Obviously, it could offend some like traditionalist or like Italian individuals. For myself, I don't personally pursue it, but I also don't eat that much pizza either, so to speak. So it's just kind of something I don't really like. And I guess maybe perhaps the biggest issue is Hawaiian or ham and pineapple pizza is kind of where it's most common, and I don't really like ham. So for myself, the most common pizza with pineapple on it is not something I would order anyways. When she says, what other fantasy book series would I recommend that are also a light read? Well, I highly recommend you take a look at Andy Weir. He wrote The Martian. He also wrote Artemis. And of the two, The Martian was actually made into quite a big movie, and I think it did quite well. There's a good chance many of you, ladies and gentlemen, have actually watched the movie. The book is pretty much like the movie, but better in my opinion. But at the same time, Artemis I found was a much more enjoyable read. It's lighthearted. I finished the book in maybe like 4 days or so, and other people I've lent it to also finished it in a timely fashion. So I think Artemis is a great read by Andy Weir. It's light. It has a nice protagonist who I did enjoy. The concept is interesting. There's basically a colony on the moon, and that's all I'm going to say. So it's a pretty cool concept overall. And we're almost done. We have only 3 more questions, ladies and gentlemen. So they're asking for BP Lifting about that dating account I made a few months ago. Well, I did create all the various dating apps. So like I did utilize Hinge the most because I found Hinge worked the best for myself. And then Coffee Meets Bagel was like kind of second place. Tinder was kind of like a hopeless place for myself. I met one person from Tinder in the months I've been using dating apps. Just one person because I barely touch it, use it. And Tinder I think is more so for finding things I'm not necessarily looking for. And I have actually been on various dates with individuals, and like I've met I'd say a modest range of people. I think because like I have hobbies that I like, I can communicate and converse well. I think that's possibly why I was able to get dates. Obviously, like my health issues can be problematic and was a challenging thing to overcome because I have to somehow bring that up at some point in time. Usually not on the first date, maybe on the second date, because it's like if you're interesting enough, I'll let you know. And then if you find me not ideal, I'd rather than just tell it to my face. And most people did actually. I didn't really get ghosted too much once I've met people in person because I said, if you're not interested, just tell me. You don't even need to make up an excuse. Just say, I'm not interested. And I'll be like, cool. Like, and that's what happened. But with that being said, I did meet someone quite special and wonderful, and we have been now dating for a modest period of time, and it's going quite well. She does actually enjoy several of the board games I do enjoy. In fact, my mom herself and myself, we all played Brass Birmingham yesterday. I made us a delicious dinner as well afterwards. It was a great time overall. So like, there is hope out there in online dating, and amusingly enough, the one person I did meet through Tinder was actually the person I'm currently dating somehow. Pretty wild and crazy overall, but it's been at least a pleasant outcome overall. Elizabeth Cruz asks, do I ever work out? Well, I don't think I would say like working out, so to speak, but I do exercise a bit because, again, like I said, I do have various health issues. I can't do too much. So like this morning, for instance, I went to like the gym in my condo complex and I just pedaled on a stationary bike. It's the bikes with like the bigger backrest, so it's a bit easier on my back. And I was able to do like 15 minutes a day. Like it's been pretty bad, my health, in the past couple of months actually. So I'm just trying to like ease into it a little more slowly, so to speak. So I just try to do what I can. I eat I'm conscious of what I eat, since mostly because I do cook basically everything from scratch. So I do kind of know what I put in my body. So if I don't exercise too much, I will simply eat less. And that's partially why I haven't gained too much weight despite having lower mobility. And then finally, Superman asks, what collabs do I want to return to Pad? Well, it'd be pretty cool if Power Rangers returned, right? Who remembers that, like, North American exclusive collab? It has, like, it was an interesting collab when it first came out, but then I guess, like, let me think, like, other collaborations that I did enjoy. Well, Final Fantasy, I remember, had one of the biggest impacts in the game. It's so old now that any rerun will be a huge revamp overall. I'd obviously like Star Wars to come back because I did mention already that I do at least know and appreciate that universe. Again, Final Fantasy I have kind of superficial knowledge of, but I remember it was something that I liked rolling in because the cards were nice, the art was pleasant as well, so hopefully those. And with that being said, those are all the wonderful questions you delightful ladies and gentlemen asked this month. I will try my best to do this again in the future months moving forward. But with that being said, hopefully all you lovely ladies and gentlemen have a truly fantastic day. I wish you the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.